Today I'd like to take a look at the Omega Seamaster Professional Planet Ocean. This is reference 232-304-221-01001. This diver's wristwatch is crafted in 316L stainless steel. It's 42 millimeters in diameter, lug widths of 20, lug to lug of 48. The case has both matte and shiny surfaces. These twisted or Bombay lugs. Screw down crown. Manually operated helium release valve at 10. The bracelet is matte, solid end links, solid links throughout. I just closed the diver's extension. Let me show you again. Okay. And it's a push button clasp. The bracelet, I might mention, is held by screws and push links. In order to remove one of these links, you remove the screw and you can push the pin out. Let's take a look at the dial. There's a date aperture at 3, and as you can see, the Omega logo, the 12, 9, and the 6 are applied markers. They're not printed on, they're actually applied on. Hands and indices are rhodium plated. Luminous material that's used is superluminova, and there are two different colors used. The minutes hand and the bezel dot glow green, whereas the hour hand, the rest of the indices, glow blue. The reason for this differentiation is to help you read off elapsed time more easily. I guess under darkened conditions, you don't have to waste time thinking about which is the hour hand, which is the minute hand. So I thought that's kind of interesting. Coaxial refers to the type of escapement that's used, which we'll talk about when we get to the movement. It's a chronometer, even though it doesn't say so. It's a COSC certified chronometer. 600 meters or 2,000 feet water resistance. Now, how do you operate the watch? Everything is done via the crown. It's a screw down crown. First thing you do, unscrew it. Now you can wind the watch. Extract it to the first position out, and you can adjust the hours hand independently, sort of Rolex GMT style. No quick set date, so you have to just keep spinning it until you get the date that you want. If you go clockwise, you'll advance the date. And if you go counterclockwise, you can go back to an earlier date. See, 4 becomes a 3, 3 becomes a 4. Now finally, if you pull it all the way out, you can hack the watch and you can set the minutes. And when you're done, push the crown in, screw it back down. This is the helium release valve. And the way you operate that, you unscrew it, let all the helium out, helium gas bubbles out, or helium molecules out rather, and you screw it back down. Now the manual, the Omega manual, suggests that you do this a few times. Now, there are some watches, for example the Rolex Sea Dweller, that have an automatic helium release valve, in which case you don't have to do anything. But this is manually operated. Sapphire crystal is dual coated with anti-reflective coating, one on the front, one on the back, giving the dial a crystal clear appearance. Two coatings, one on the front side, one on the back side. Bezel inserts ceramic, which is very resistant to scratches and fading. Bezel is 120 click unidirectional. Let's take a look at the case back. Take a look at some of the writing. You see Planet Ocean. That little mark over there looks like a scuff mark. It's actually an Omega logo. See the water resistance there? 600 meters, 2,000 feet. The SI14 refers to the type of hairspring that's used. That stands for silicon. And this is a professional model. Now, let's talk a little bit about this very interesting movement. It's Omega caliber 8500. Omega essentially built this movement from the ground up specifically to accommodate the coaxial escapement. Caliber 8500 differs from caliber 2500, which is essentially an ETA movement that's been retrofitted with a coaxial escapement. But with the 8500, Omega basically made the coaxial escapement, I guess, the star of the show, and everything else is sort of built around it to, I guess, support or to accommodate the escapement, if you will. Now, by way of background, let's talk a little bit about the coaxial escapement. It was invented in the 70s by British watchmaker George Daniels, and the primary advantage of this type of escapement over a conventional Swiss lever escapement is the reduction of something called sliding friction. We're talking about the friction that occurs when the tooth of an escape wheel interacts with the pallet stone on the anchor. Now, the reduction of this kind of friction will ultimately result in a watch that's able to maintain its precision or accuracy over a greater period of time than the same watch fitted with a conventional Swiss lever escapement. What we're basically talking about here is reduction of friction equals more efficient transfer of energy and contributes, I guess, to the overall, more efficient operating of the movement. I mean, that's putting it in very layman type terms, but you could think about it this way. I guess less friction in any kind of machine will ultimately result in greater operating efficiency. I guess I'm simplifying this a bit, but I guess that's the best way to understand it. Let's run down the specs of this movement. It's a 39 joule cost certified automatic chronometer. It beats at 25,200 beats per hour. It's been adjusted to 5 positions and compensated for temperature. Accuracy on this particular watch is a little bit over plus 1.7 seconds per day. That's wearing it 24/7 and not removing it except to shower. Beryllium-free balance. Beryllium-free free-sprung balance. The reason for using a beryllium-free balance is that such a balance is less sensitive to temperature variations. The balance's inertia is, I guess, controlled or adjusted for by 4 screws on the balance. So it's a free-sprung balance. There's no index to control it. Silicon hairspring is used. The reason for silicon is that silicon is very, very resistant to magnetism and very shock resistant, and it's able to retain its shape, according to Omega's video, forever. It's another thing that contributes to, I guess, the operating efficiency of the watch. There's a balance bridge here, a transverse bridge. It has 2 mainspring barrels. Let me see if I can show you that. Just turn it over a bit. I don't know if you can see it, but actually it's right. There's some right underneath these rubies here. Barrel 1, barrel 2, and basically, it gives us a power reserve on this watch of about a little bit over 60 hours. In my case, 63 hours, 12 minutes to be exact. The barrels have a diamond-like coating on them, and that is another friction reducer. So you can see, Omega really thought about it very carefully. I mean, they're doing everything they can to reduce friction. Once again, friction is pretty much the enemy of any mechanical device. Reduction of friction will ultimately result in better operating efficiency, if you will. In this case, operating efficiency, I would assume, is measured by a watch's ability to maintain its precision or accuracy over a greater period of time. Now, what I think about this watch, I really like this watch. Has a good amount of heft. A lot's been made about the thickness of this watch. Apparently some people are turned off by this, but I didn't find it so. I didn't even give it a second thought. I like the heft. It's very, very comfortable on my wrist. As far as the movement, I would go so far as to say it's I'll unconditionally say it's an excellent movement. The reason why I say unconditionally is simply because these type of movements haven't been around a long time. It's still not tried and true. But anecdotally, I haven't heard too many complaints about this movement. I think if I can see into the future, I think it'll go down as one of the better movements out there, But we'll see. We'll see. But so far, so good. In the future, I'm going to post up a separate video to talk about the coaxial movement in slightly greater detail. It'll reiterate some of the things we talked about today, but we'll go into it with a little bit more depth because I find the movement, rather interesting. And finally, last but not least, appearances count to some extent. The decoration that's used here is a Côte de Genève on arabesque. It probably sounds better if you're a native French speaker, but what that means is that it's decorated with Geneva waves with an arabesque motif. I find it very, very pleasing to the eye. Now, in all honesty, I was on the fence about the Planet Ocean for many, many years. When it first came out, I thought the hands looked a little funky. I mean, specifically Minute's hand. If I recall, the arrowhead was more thinner. There was just something I didn't like about it. And I guess I didn't like the fact that it was just an ETA movement retrofitted with a coaxial escapement. No disrespect with the ETA movement. I mean, I have other watches with ETA movements that run very, very well. But I guess I expected more from Omega. So I waited and waited, and finally I saw this in the metal. And that's it. The rest is history. Whipped out my credit card, and here we are talking about this watch. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope I didn't leave out anything. One thing I do want to mention. The one slight negative about this watch, there's no micro adjustment on the clasp. So if you need to make the watch tighter or looser, you would either have to add in the half link or remove the half link. Fortunately for me, it's just right. I've worn this watch under very hot conditions. We're talking about 90-degree temperatures, and I've worn in the winter as well, under cold temperatures, and it's comfortable either way. I don't have to do anything, so far so good. So, even though I don't like to rate watches, and I haven't done so, I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, I give this watch an overall rating of, let's say, 9. The only reason I subtract the 1 is because I feel like the helium release valve, it's not really necessary. And I guess they could have put an automatic one in here. And also, it would have been a little bit better. Although the movement is pretty to look at, it'd be nice if this were a solid case back. So there you have it. The Omega Seamaster Professional Planet Ocean. Let me give you one last look at it. Thanks for your viewership. I greatly appreciate it. All constructive criticism is appreciated, and I will see you next time, or you'll hear from me next time. Have a good one now. Take care.